Welcome, everyone. I'm Erica Volt, and I'm so glad to welcome you to this series on conversations with women in midlife about trusting their voices. These conversations were inspired by an article series that I've written. The first one is called Midlife Women and Their Voices That We Stopped Trusting. Part two will be out later this week. A workshop on your voice and by design, where we explore the communication center in human design is actually scheduled for May 28th. So that workshop inspired the article, and then the women that I interviewed have inspired these interviews. So I am so grateful today to be welcomed and to be joined by Lana Jane Tallis, who writes Worthy and Wild on Substack. And she was one of the 15 women I interviewed for this article series. And I have to say that going live with Lana Jean a couple of weeks ago is what inspired me to then reach out to other women to share their stories about their voices. So, welcome, Lana Jean.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I'm in the hot seat today.
Well, tell us who you are, what you do, and what brought you to Substack.
Okay, so forgive me if I use a little bit of notes because I am so bad at off the cuff. But I'm Lana Jean Tejas. As you said, I am an educator at heart. I'm a writer and somebody who's deeply committed to helping women come back to themselves, especially in midlife. Um, Professionally, I've spent nearly 2 decades as an educator, particularly in special education, and currently serving as a program specialist. So I'm in administration now. I'm no longer teaching, which is another totally different animal. My work has always been rooted in advocacy. So I'm really passionate about supporting students and educators and working to create systems that where people can feel seen, valued, and supported. And that comes from my background that I shared with you for your article. But beyond my role in schools, I've also been involved in nonprofit work and statewide advocacy work, where I have supported special education professionals pushing for better outcomes for students and with exceptional needs, and supporting educators so they have the tools and resources they have to support their students. And so, alongside that, and I've shared this before, that I've just been called to really do something more. Working in education, you realize that it is a female dominated field.
Mhm.
And so there's a whole nother podcast and live we could do on that subject. I mean, that could go on for days. Just how, if it were more male dominated, the pay would be better, the systems may be different. I don't know. It really, for a long time, I just felt there's more. Like I feel like I need to support women so that we can collectively do better for ourselves, for children, anyway. So, um, that really, I'd been toying with that for a long time and wrestling with that, and that's really what brought me to Substack. I felt like, and then the writing with Worthy and Wild, I just started to explore identity and leadership and what it would mean for women
Mhm.
to live with intention and alignment. So that's really what it came from. And I felt like I had so much to say, and this was a perfect platform for that.
Mhm.
So what brought me to Substack.
I love that. So I'm curious, when I put out the call for women to share their stories about their voice, what made you respond? And what was it about the topic that felt important for you? Because you were talking about women earlier. So tell me more about that.
Um, so, oh my gosh. Um, I think I felt like that was an area that I had struggled with for so long, um, that it wasn't a question. I just knew I had to respond. And I really do feel like I f- I am. totally believe in serendipity. And so just meeting you and then you reaching out, I just felt like it was meant to be.
Mhm.
And, it is an area that I've just struggled with for so long that I felt like I had to answer. So you had great questions. It really had me thinking deeper, um, kind of going more into my human design a little more was also kind of encouraged me to do that. I've always dabbled here and there with it, but never really took it seriously. So it kind of opened the door for me again to like relook at that. And it was really eye opening just how why I have felt so called to do the things that I have wanted to do just based on things that you were asking in your interview. So
Mm.
questions.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you went back into your human design because for for my listeners, like, they know I love to geek out about it. I geeked out about it on Saturday at a women's retreat for 2 hours. Like, I love to share it. I love the aha moments, and
Mhm.
so you shared something in the article about your relationship with your voice, and without giving a lot away, can you tell us more about where you were and then what has shifted for you? And I'd be curious to hear about, like, going back into your human design, how that what brought up for you.
So, I think for a long time, my voice depended on the room I was in and who I was with. I think a lot of women can relate to that. Um, I could be strong, capable, and successful in one hand and then totally crumble somewhere else. And, the self-sabotage, uh, huge. On the outside, I could look very together and then, like I said, depending on the rooms that I was in. So there were times, like I shared, when I was a kid, I grew up in an environment where you were seen and not heard. Um, to this day, it's hard, it's still hard. Like I'm 59 years old and that still impacts to this day, like being literally told you don't matter. And so it stays with you. I've had to fight um, for my voice for a long time, and just wrestle with that. I think, like I shared in the article, questions, being a teacher, that was a pivotal. You would think being a parent, um, but it was being a teacher that advocating for students, especially those who didn't have the language or confidence, to speak for themselves. I think that really forced me to use my voice in a different way, and that kind of was a pivotal moment for me because it pushed me into spaces where I had to speak clearly and advocate, sometimes very boldly and stand firm in what I knew was right. And that takes really relying on your voice. And it's, personally, it's still a journey. I think that's what I loved about Substack. It kind of got me out of that comfort. It kinda expanded, um, my my voice even further, um, and then, as far as my human design and you asked about the human design piece, um, I just felt like I'd never really thought about it from a voice standpoint, and then I did a little research after, um, your question and just how that, I don't know, I just felt like it helped me reclaim that voice a little more and going, "Okay, now I know why I feel so called." I guess because I have that defined,
Mhm.
um, I don't know, you'll have to share more about that for me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it just really opened my eyes.
Yeah. Well, the throat center is the area of communication. So all of our emotions get expressed through it, all of our thoughts, all of our opinions,
Yeah.
our identity, our intuition. I mean, everything connects to the throat center. And I talk about this in part two of the article. And what I find so fascinating is that, like, women who have it undefined, which I do, it's not necessarily, I don't communicate the same way with everybody. I tend to shift where I am with other people, and I've also growing up, I learned to always have something to say, always fill in the silence, and never being able to understand that, like, I was talking to talk, I was not talking to be heard. And that was a huge realization for me. And so people who have a defined throat center can also be the people who are talking over people, but they also find that their words aren't landing unless they're like, "Okay, is this a time for me to speak, or am I just talking to fill the voice?" So a lot of times they look very similar, but you probably talk the same way, speak the same way around who no matter who you're with. And with me, I talk to kids in a way that's not in this. I was a children's librarian for 19 years, and it was like I would talk to kids, and then the one of my library directors said, "Kids just respond to you in a way that I they don't
Mhm.
respond to me," and I'm like, "'Cause I talk to them like they're real people. I'm not talking down to them," and she's like, "But I don't know how to
Yeah.
do that," and I was like, "I just I just do. I don't know, and I can strike up conversations with most random people."
Yeah.
But yeah, having that defined throat center, I think a lot of times people will feel that they can say all the words they want, but if their words are not landing, they're like, "Why are they not hearing me?" Does
Yeah.
that resonate with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I and then yeah, and then because I feel like it was similar, but different, like you're saying,
Mhm,
that was I feel like I meant to speak in the moment,
mhm,
um, and influence. Like, I've always been called to that, but never really understood, and, I guess that's part of the defined throat center is, telling stories, create impact, and I never really believed in myself enough that that
mhm,
was until I became an educator. Like, then it was like, okay, like, it's that spark started to, um, come into play. So, yeah, it's crazy. I'm so, excited to learn more about that and the
mhm.
journey. Yeah.
So what's one thing you know about your voice and how you communicate that you wish you had known earlier? Like, what has sort of explained your journey to us that you already haven't?
Um, about my own journey,
Mhm,
I think for me, like I shared, just you're called for a reason. Y- I always talk about, your intuition, and it's important to listen to that because it's so true that um, I have felt called to do more, to be more, to use my voice. And for the longest time when I especially young, like, I didn't like my voice. I know I've heard you and other people talk about that too. Like, I I did not like my voice. I didn't like to talk. I was very shy, growing up, and, I think it's all connected. The You're not gonna just miraculously wake up and be confident. Just like anything else, it takes work and practice, um, and then eventually that flow and confidence comes from there. I'm a work in progress, but I think it's just the bravery, right? Being brave and courageous and just convicted in having that conviction that what you have to say matters, that somebody out there it's gonna land with someone, and you're not for everyone, and just understanding that, I think, is
mhm.
huge.
And so going from the period of time where you were told you didn't matter and your voice didn't matter, what brought what brought that voice out of you to be able to say, "I'm going to speak for other people," especially people who maybe don't have a voice?
Definitely, I'll probably start, getting emotional, but I think just my background, not having a voice, not feeling heard, or, as a young person, I could totally relate to my students
Mhm.
and what they were going through because, I dealt with kids with, disabilities, with, a lot of, learning challenges and trauma, uh, and so they kinda taught me more than I like I shared with you, like, they taught me more than I would have ever been able to teach them, and so I think it is through that process of realizing they need what I didn't have, and
Mhm.
so that really encouraged me to that's kind of what the catalyst for bringing my voice out, really where it came from, honestly.
Oh my gosh, that's so oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, what would you say to a woman who is listening and right now who feels like she has never gained her confidence in her voice or that she doesn't have anything important to say or has been told like you were that her voice was didn't matter or maybe she's been told that her voice was too much. What do you not advice necessarily, but like what would you say for her?
Wow, you asked some really good questions. Um, so I would say, first and foremost, that belief probably didn't start with you. Somewhere along the way, you learned your voice, like you said, was too much or not enough or not needed. That's learned, and what can be learned can be unlearned. Um, and so just from my own experiences, I feel like we don't need the perfect words. I think we get caught up in, "Oh, everything has to be perfect." That's why I love live because it is definitely not perfect.
Exactly.
And I think I have a tendency, my personality, to over edit and, you know, hyper focus and obsess, and so that's kind of what I love live because it forces me to just wing it, which I think
Mhm.
is good for all of us, and so
Same.
you don't need the perfect words, you don't need the big platform, again, why I love Substack. You don't need everything figured out. Um, but your voice matters because it's yours. Um, and, I've heard this, everybody saying, which I am totally collectively, um, when you hear the era of women,
Mhm.
I truly believe that this is the era of women. Again, makes me so emotional because I feel it collectively. Um, and so women stepping into their voice, telling their truth about their lives, like that's us choosing to live and lead differently, I think is huge. And so I think, legacy, that term kind of can be overused, but it's so true. Like that's our legacy. And so you start small. That, if I could tell anyone out there, just say the thing, um, write the sentence, just trust what's there and trust your gut. And because your voice it's not something you earn, it's like it's yours.
Mhm.
And so it's just something we need to return to. So that's what I would say. And I
Yeah.
wish somebody would have told me that. So I didn't wait until my 50s to finally get my act together.
Yeah, but don't you feel like there's so much that happened in your 40s and even into your 50s that, like, you have to go through all
Yeah,
the experiences that
you
then
do.
teach you that you have something to say. I think that that was the
Yeah,
hardest thing for me was feeling like I could say something at work and it didn't land with people, and I was just like, "Oh, why do they never listen to me?" But also, I was not in a position where I was doing the work that I loved.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that there are so many experiences we go through as midlife women that we're like, "Oh,
yeah,
I do have something to say, and
Yeah.
what I has found so fascinating about being on Substack is, like, I've had my own podcast now for a year, and my early episodes, I go back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, please, please nobody listen to those." Even though some of them, like, the message was good, I just didn't feel
Yeah.
like I trusted myself yet. But there's something about Substack, like, writing it down in a
Mhm.
way that's different than reading it or even talking it, having a conversation that just I don't
I
know, there's a
agree.
certain power that comes through,
Yeah.
and, you know that there are people on the other side that are gonna read it and support you in a way that I mean, y
Yeah.
I get statistics for my podcast on my platform, but, like, Substack, seeing what people share and then people messaging me personally, nobody ever messaged me personally on my podcast. Maybe a
Right.
couple people did, and they were like, "That was a
Right.
really good episode." But then I went back to this article that I wrote, and, like, I am still getting messages that, like or people are restacking it and hearing how
Mhm.
it's resonating with them, I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh." I did
It's really
not
amazing.
I knew it was gonna be an impactful article. It wasn't until I wrote the article and then I read it as my podcast episode, and I was getting teary-eyed when I was reading it out loud. Um, and I
Yeah.
felt this huge responsibility to share your stories and honor your stories in a way that, like, I didn't wanna just slap them up on the page. I was just like,
Right.
I found the threads through them, and I was like, "Oh, I just
Mhm.
really want somebody to I wanna take care of them the way that I would wanna be taken care of."
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being part of this project that just
Yeah. Thank you for having me
sort of
and for
landed in
doing
my
it.
lap.
Yeah, and I am really grateful to have met you and, like, truly honored. You I feel like people connect for a reason, and I just
Mhm.
really appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing great work.
Thank you. Thank you. And as somebody who was told I was not a good writer in college, like, to have this impact, I'm like, I was not essays in freshman year of college, are not impactful. Not the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for being part of this. I so appreciate it,
Yeah,
Lana.
thank you.
And for those of you who are interested in going deeper with you, how can they find you on
Well,
Substack?
on Substack, Worthy and Wild, and I see
Okay,
some familiar names on here. A couple of them I think are part of an article that I'm writing that have joined. So thank you
awesome.
guys. Yeah, Worthy and
Yeah.
Wild on Substack.
Okay. Well, thank you. And for those of you who want to go deeper into your voice by design, I will be doing a workshop on May 28th. It will be for paid Substack subscribers, but you can always get there's like the little trial. So you can always get that. But I would welcome everybody. You can even just subscribe for a month to get the workshop. I am so excited about this workshop. And I see Charlotte here, who I talked to last week. Like,
Yeah, I'm
Lana
gonna
and
join.
Charlotte, you both inspired me, and this was part of my challenge was to trust my voice and to talk about the communication center in human design, and I was like, "I have to do this. I have to do this because there's no other way I'm gonna trust myself more than to do something that's scary." So
Right, for sure.
that's that's May 28th for those of you who are curious, and, we will thank you so much, Lana. It was so great to talk to you, and
Yeah,
everyone,
thank
thanks for
you.
joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
day.